If your answer to number 4 on your own practice sheet is not m equals 3 or negative 3, you need to go back and rework that problem. When I work number 5, I can see that it's not equal to 0, and we've already talked about how, although it would be easier to just move one part over, I don't want to work with my leading coefficient being negative, so I'm going to move these two over to join with the 2n squared. And when I do, I need to make sure I move them in the order so that they're in standard form, and also they're going to get sign changes when they move over. So I have my 2n squared. When my 7n moves over, it turns negative. When my negative 3 moves over, it turns positive. And now there's nothing left on the right-hand side, so I do have it equal to 0. Looking at the numbers 2, 7, and 3, there is not a GCF, so I'm just ready to go ahead and factor this one. And I'm going to use the bottoms-up method, where I take the 2 to the 3 at the end. So that would give me n squared minus 7n plus 6 equals 0. So what I need to find now are two numbers that multiply to make positive 6, but the same two answers have to add to make negative 7. So if these two are going to add up to a negative number, but multiply to make a positive, my hint for you is it's going to have to be a negative times a negative in order to add up to a negative number. Did you decide on negative 6 times negative 1 to get positive 6, since negative 6 plus negative 1 adds up to negative 7? These are the factor pairs that are going to go in the parentheses to factor this problem. So the n squared is always going to be just n times n, and we decided we're going to use a minus 6 and a minus 1. Now, since we used bottoms up to do this, the 2 that we brought to the end at the beginning, we need to put that back. We multiplied, so now we're doing the opposite, which is divide. And we're going to see if these reduce. 6 over 2 reduces to 3. 1 over 2 does not reduce, so I'm going to move the bottom up and put it in front of that n. Now I'm going to make sure that this is factored correctly to give me what we had to start with before we move the 2 to the end. N times 2n gives me the 2n squared. Negative 3 times negative 1 gives me the positive 3. The negative 7 comes from the combination of negative 3 times 2n and n times negative 1. Negative 6n plus negative 1n does add up to negative 7n, so I know that this one is factored correctly, and I'm ready to find my answers. So for this parenthesis, n minus 3, ignore this problem here, sorry about that. If n minus 3 is 0, then you know that n would have to be 3, since 3 minus 3 makes 0. There's your first answer. Your second answer, if 2n minus 1 makes 0, you know that you can use the pattern of opposite sign on this number. So since it was negative, now it's positive. And if there's something in front of the n, get rid of it by dividing. Here are your two answers for n, and now you need to work number 5 on your practice worksheet.